Welcome back, DPReview TV viewers. It's Jordan Drake here to take a look at the brand new DJI RS3 Pro gimbal. Now, a couple of years ago, we took a look at the RS2 gimbal. I was a huge fan of that. Now we've got a new version, but in the time in between, DJI brought out their Ronin 4D, which was like a camera and a gimbal built together, brought out a lot of really cool innovations for video shooters, and the RS3 Pro is actually going to work with some of those tools. Unfortunately, that's mostly with accessories I don't have handy. So let's take a look at how the RS3 Pro performs in its standard kit. Okay, so where does this fit in the Ronin lineup? It's actually super confusing because last time we looked at this, the RSC2 was the smaller gimbal, and then the RS2 was the more professional version. Now the RS3 is the lower end version, and the RS3 Pro is their higher end version. And it's not dramatically different from the old one in terms of design. It's still a 4.5 kilo payload on it. The big difference here is it's a much wider design, so you can put bigger cameras on it or longer lenses without it totally throwing the balance off. Certainly the little GH6 I'm using today isn't going to be a challenge for it, but if you wanted to use like a Sony FX6 or a Red, you can actually get away with it with a handheld gimbal. The other real update that we're seeing is we now have a little bit of a larger LCD. It's still really tiny. It's a 1.8 inch display on it, but that's an improvement over the 1.4 inch we saw before. It's great for going through menus, and you can even kind of check your frame with it, but I wouldn't want to focus off of it for anything. For that, nice thing with the Pro kit is it does come with the Ravenized transmitter that'll kick out a video feed from your camera's HDMI port out to like your phone or a tablet, and that's going to make critical focus really easy if you can't see the back of the camera. But the biggest thing I would say is when you're done shooting your clip with this new camera, you can just hit the power button and it'll fold itself up and auto lock instead of having to flip all the axes around, manually lock them. And a lot of the time you'd miss one, and while you're driving to the next location, the gimbal's spinning around in the back seat, clunking all over, all kinds of stuff. It's been a real problem in the past, and it's fixed with this new model. In terms of the actual stabilization, they're doing something very similar to the RS2, where effectively the more you use the gimbal, the more it's going to learn the way that you move and compensate for it. And you can have different profiles for different camera operators. Another feature carried over from most of the other DJI products is their active track mode. Now, this is another reason you're going to want to get it in the kit with the Ravenized transmitter, so the gimbal can see what your camera is seeing. But then if you want to move around, it'll actually do its best to keep you in the frame. And if you're like a single camera operator, you're presenting by yourself to camera all the time, this is going to allow you to get a little bit of movement in your shots without having to bring in a second operator. It's a very cool feature, but you might have noticed a real trend here. This is also a feature that was available in the RS2. So if you're looking at the RS3 Pro, I really think it makes sense to get it in a kit, mostly because that's also going to get you their motorized follow focus unit. And you can use manual focus lenses, or if you've got an autofocus lens with a clutch, like the Panasonic 10-25 we've got here, you get a wonderful focus pulling experience. Now you might be thinking, I remember back when you guys talked about the Ronin 4D, it had that visual waveform using LiDAR, and you guys loved that for pulling focus. This does support that LiDAR module. It's one of the coolest things about it, but I've got a real concern about using that module with this unit. And that's because when we tested manual focus lenses with the Ronin 4D, I found that you had to put in an absolute ton of distance markers. Say like, here's where the lens is focused at 1 foot away, here it is at 2 feet, 3 feet, 6 feet, and so on and on. If you didn't add a bunch of those, it would be extremely inaccurate. Now, this does have all the cool functionality of that. If you attach the LiDAR unit, where you can get the focus waveform in manual focus, and you can actually get autofocus with manual focus lenses, which sounds amazing. But I was watching Potato Jet's look at the RS3 Pro, and he said you can only input 2 different distances, and I don't think that's nearly enough information to actually get accurate focus with these. I haven't tested this personally, but I'd be very wary of spending the $700 to get a LiDAR unit and find out it doesn't really work very well. Okay, so let's do a little bit of vlogging with this setup. Well, I talk about one of the other optional accessories that this is compatible with, and that's DJI's wireless transmission system. Now, I didn't get one to test with the RS3 Pro, but we did check those out when we looked at the Ronin 4D, and it's incredibly impressive. And unlike a lot of other video transmission systems, this is giving you control of the camera, the follow focus, and the gimbal all remotely with a little 7-inch display. It's a very powerful system. The thing is, though, that video transmission package is going to set you back $2,500 US. So I would almost consider the Ronin RS3 Pro an accessory for that video assist kit, as opposed to the other way around. But if you're looking for a very complete wireless follow focus package and you want to use your own camera, well then the RS3 Pro is going to be a great option. So I really think that the RS3 Pro is a little bit more of a niche tool than the RS2 that came before it, because most of the major upgrades that you're seeing over the RS3 are more specialized tools, like that LiDAR, which I am still a little bit skeptical of, and the video transmission system, which is absolutely fantastic, but a pretty hefty premium. So really, I think when you should go with the RS3 Pro is primarily if you're going to be putting a big rig on it that's going to require those stronger motors. But otherwise, the RS3 has a lot of the really great features like the auto locking, the 1.8-inch display that we saw on the RS3 Pro for quite a bit less money. And I think for the majority of users, that's going to be the way to go. Thanks so much for joining me. Hopefully you got some useful information out of this video. And if so, please subscribe to the channel, give us a like. We would really appreciate that. And we'll be back soon with more DPReview TV.